So good afternoon to all our members of our Universal Philosophical Community, the White Tower. Today, we're very happy to have a lot of professors from the USA and India with us. Good afternoon to Professor Daniel Del Monte from the USA. Professor, good afternoon, Professor. Good afternoon, Dr. Vandana Sharma from India. And also good afternoon to Professor MADHVI Prasad from India as well. And would like also to say our welcome to AISHA, who is a Ph.D. candidate from India as well, if I'm not mistaken. Good afternoon to you, AISHA, if you're hearing us. So today's topic is going to be students controlling their own learning, or should we focus on subject-based learning? But first, let's have a short presentation on both Sri Aurobindo and John Dewey as food for thought for our later discussion. So starting from Sri Aurobindo and his philosophy of life, we would say that he focuses on how to synthesize spirituality, creativity, and intellectuality. He's a devotee of yoga, which means the synthesis of human and divine power. His ideology is very important because he doesn't want to teach man to experience the inner element of the self, but he wants to guide the whole mankind from the darkness to knowledge. He has a very interesting theory of evolution, answering the question how God created the world. And of course, how to link the individual soul with the supreme soul, divination. His two directions of evolution are descent and ascent. Let's imagine a ladder and an individual going up and down the ladder. This is a spiritual ladder. The lower an individual goes, the more he approaches the materialistic world. But as he climbs up the spiritual ladder, he approaches divination. There are 7 steps of this spiritual ladder. I'm going to mention them later on, which are closely linked with the aims of individual development. Now, his philosophy of education mainly states that children should develop their interests, creativity, mental, moral, and aesthetic senses. There are 4 layers of education, namely the passive memory, the 6th sense. There's a high level of judgment involved, as well as a direct vision of knowledge. The ultimate aim now of human life is the attainment of God. And of course, Sri Aurobindo strives for both physical and spiritual development. Now, why is education important? According to Sri Aurobindo, education is very important because, as I've said earlier, it helps a man move the stages onwards by developing his physical, vital, mental, moral, and spiritual development. Now, these 5 developmental aims are closely linked with the 7 steps of this spiritual ladder. The first one, being the physical development, is closely linked with the first step, that of matter, and aims to the protection of the body through games, gymnastics, and physical training. Of course, vocational development plays a role here. The second developmental aim is linked with prana, the energy, and wants to bring the moral and character development of human being through music, art, drama, and dance. The third developmental aim has to do with the manas, which is the 3rd step, aiming towards the mental development of human beings through language, maths, and social sciences. Regarding the 4th developmental aim, the moral development is closely linked with the inner self and focuses on yogic method for the preparation towards spirit through noble habits and right emotions. And the last step, the last developmental aim, is that of psychic and spiritual development, which is closely linked with the 5th, 6th, and the 7th steps, the 3 higher steps of the spiritual ladder, where the man feels neither happiness nor pain, is well aware of his own self as well as the universe, towards pure existence. And the ultimate aim is the attainment of a divine body and infinite power. Sri Aurobindo gives a lot of emphasis on the culture of yoga when it comes to the curriculum of education, which he thinks is much more important than physical and spiritual subjects and activities that students are involved. So this culture of yoga is very, very important. He has a lot of teaching methods to propose, such as, let me say 2 or 3 of them. Assimilation of knowledge by understanding, should be focusing on the abilities and aptitudes of the children and their potentialities, and how they should learn by doing. And he also gives a lot of emphasis on the impressionistic discipline, meaning that teachers should present ideal content before the students, not to persuade students to follow them as a must-do, but as their duty to do so, as an internal true discipline. One of his quotes is that one must be a saint and a hero to be a good teacher. And also another thing that made an impression on me is that he says that if there is no religion, man cannot identify his spiritual form. There is one that we need a religious belief so that we can develop our own spirituality. And also he believes that if all mother tongues, and if I'm not mistaken, in India there are approximately 270 mother tongues. And Sri Aurobindo says that if all mother tongues are used as the medium of education, everyone could have equal access to education from all parts of India. Now, coming to John Dewey now and his theory of instrumentalism, in a nutshell, he believes that scientific theories could be used as instrumental tools so as to solve practical problems, because we don't need these theories merely to describe our natural world. And because of the fact that there were a lot of other scientific currents back then, such as empiricism, rationalism, the Kantian view, Dewey replaced all of these theories by saying that we don't need empiricism, or we don't need rationalism or Kantian view, which was more of a mind-centered system. What we actually need is an experience nature transaction. And why is that? Because that helps inquiry into inquiry, that helps problem solving, that helps analysis of self-reflection, of reflective thinking. And what Dewey focuses on most is not the product itself, but the process. Because truth is not somewhere outside of the box. It's not transcendental. It's not a transcendental truth, but the truth itself is found in the process of inquiry. And also truth is not beyond experience, but, and that's my favorite reference, a relation which is socially shared, and that has implications of being shared within a community, a learning community. So, John Dewey, one of my favorite quotes: if we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow. So experiential learning and teaching is of utmost importance, according to John Dewey, The pupils are not passive recipients of knowledge, but active agents, taking control of their own learning. It's not the acquisition that counts, but the actual learning process. And when they asked him, what do you believe in most? Do you favor a child-centered approach or a traditional approach based on curriculums? He answered, none of the above. The child is not the only starting point. Society has a say on the child's development. Community has a say, a legitimate stake in passing along the interests, the needs, and the values. What we actually need is a school as a micro community. That's where children could grow their own interests and needs. And of course, the most important thing about Dewey is that through his educational views, he promotes democracy. Democratic principles could be improved. How? By connecting the child, the school, and society. So he says this great thing, that democracy is the idea of community life itself, where students could actually have much more comprehension than from a form of a government. So individuals exist in communities, actually, and because of the fact that they have to face a lot of challenges in their lives, lots of conflicts could emerge. That requires intelligent management. And of course, within a community, everything could be solved. And last but not least, the main features, two main features of John Dewey's education is that one of them is that through communication of ideas and meanings within a group and shared activities, problems could be resolved much easier, and students learn better when they are fully engaged in the experiences, fully engaged in reflecting on their own experiences, so as to adapt their habits of action. And how? By observing their own effects of their actions. I mean, habits, as we say in Greece, exis deftera physis. Habits are the second nature. So the thing is how to adapt this habit of action by observing your own effects of your actions, and that's the magic. So in such a way, students themselves could develop skills for democratic activity. That's very deep. That was it, and of course, John Dewey mentions the dialogic teaching, critical thinking, and learning as inquiry as teaching techniques, let's say, so that such as case studies, problem-solving situations that make learners get a deeper understanding of themselves, the subject, and the context as well. So that was it. Very short presentation. I tried to be as brief as I could. Let us admit Vandana Sharma again. So I'd like your first comments. Of course, Professor Daniel, you could take over.
Sure. I have just some brief comments on Dewey, John Dewey. Since we last met, Dimitrios, I was reading his book, Democracy and Education. And I have some brief comments. It was quite interesting, and I think it ties into Professor Sharma's comments earlier. I don't know if she's still here, but anyway, let me...
she's listening. She's listening to us, yes.
Oh, she's listening. Okay, great. Okay, so let me just get my presentation set up here. So the first point is that education is necessary for society to continue. So we have new people constantly coming in, new people being born. They're kind of like blank slates. They have no knowledge of what's going on. And so we have to assimilate them. We have to bring them into our society. And so education is necessary to continue that society. We would not have a continuous social life if the kids coming in are not educated. So an essential function of education is to instill the aims and habits of the social group, the current social group. We need to instill in the new people coming in, the kids yeah, that's fine, Professor Sharma. Yeah, okay, we understand. Thank you. Good to have you here. But we need to instill the aims and habits of society into the new people. So education plays a crucial function for social continuity. So we're not a society merely by physical proximity. And also physical distance, as we see right here, does not prevent a society from forming. So people who live next to each other may not necessarily be a society. They don't share similar values. They don't have some basic shared knowledge. You could be very close to one another. They could be your neighbor. In fact, my neighbors are kind of annoying. You know, I don't feel like I have a society with them. But with this group, I do. Even though we're spread out, you know, it's morning for me and it's night for you guys. But still, we have a society. We have a shared system of values, a shared interest in philosophy. And so we're a society, not just in virtue of physical proximity, in fact, in spite of physical distance. So we learn in a very natural way. We communicate by nature. We're social beings. Aristotle says we are the political animal. We're in the polis, okay? And we communicate. When we communicate, we enlarge and shape our experience. So whenever we communicate, we are expanding our worlds. So through social interaction, our world expands, you know, even a little bit. We're learning a new idea. We're learning some news. We're learning some gossip. So this happens naturally in human life. A person that is just by himself or herself, you're very limited in your resources to think. And Dewey even says, if you're alone, you have very little ability to reflect upon past experience. So you have very limited resources to think about what's happening to you. It's even hard to imagine this because we're part of societies. We have concepts and ideas, so we can kind of process our past. But if we're alone, we become very, very limited in what we can think, okay? So what's happened, though, is that as society has developed, we kind of have taken education away from this organic setting where education should be occurring naturally. We should be communicating and forming societies and assimilating the young. But now we have like a place that's set apart. So like, okay, you're going to grow up and then you're going to go to this place over here. And that's where you're going to learn. And you have to go there. Okay, we tell our kids that. That would make no sense to, Dewey says, Dewey uses kind of an offensive word. He says the word savage. But he means more like a person who's living a primitive life, a natural life, prior to industrialization, prior to civilization. This individual, that would make no sense to a primitive person living close to nature, to have a place you go to. Okay, you're going to go learn in this place over here, because learning takes place in the community. The kids will share in the activities of the adults. Adults are doing things, as you said, Demetrios, they're experiencing. It's experience and nature are in a continuum. And so they're trying things out, and the kids are gradually picking up on that. You don't go to a separate place and learn in that separate place. So the formal education that we have in the industrialized societies is kind of dead and bookish. You go to this place and you open a book and you do 2 + 2 = 4, as Dr. Sharma was saying, and the kid has no idea why they're doing that. And you learn about like ancient history, and it's very hard to convince the kid this is actually important, and it's a constant battle. this is important. No, it's not. This is important. No, it's not. It's a constant battle, but with the kid and the teacher. And instead of having this integrated into the community, it's about reproducing society, integrating them into the community. So a couple more points here. I'll wrap it up.
Mm-hmm.
So
sure.
So we store our learning now in symbols. It's now in symbols. We have it up in words. It's not in action. And so it becomes very artificial. And education naturally is through human association. We're talking, we're doing things. It's kind of like a rat in a maze. If you put food in the maze, the rat will learn a new hexis, as you said, a new habit. Okay, the rat's going to start to adjust to the maze and find that food. Okay, so the key thing is, and I love this quote here, I'm paraphrasing here, training is not education. We're training people, we're not educating them. We are just training them to respond in a certain way in their outer behavior. You know, do this, don't do that. But we're not really affecting their character. We're not building in deep habits so that they really understand what's going on. It's just outer training. So I think I'll have a little bit more comments, but I think I'll wrap it up there so other people have a chance to talk.
Yeah, of course. Dr. Vandana Sharma, would you like to have your own say? If you're listening.
Yes, I have been listening, and Professor Daniel was on point. I think he spoke beautifully, but I just need to, give in a little inputs here from the Indian perspective. When we talk about, Professor Daniel spoke about being alone. Now, there's a lot of difference between being lonely and alone. The Indian education system says that it is good to be alone, not lonely, but good to be alone, because it is when you are alone that you can go inside and contemplate on all your experiences that you have. And until and unless you don't contemplate upon the inner part of your being, you will never be able to learn things. And therefore, I think it is very good to be alone. And therefore, children should be taught to be alone. And that is why if you go to traditional Indian schools, we have a concept of meditation wherein you are actually first told that, you come alone in this world, you stay alone, and you ultimately go alone. And therefore, during that meditation, you need to be rooted in that aloneness. And therefore, children must learn that, having a video game or, a G.I. Joe or friends, they can be a part of your life, but they cannot be your entire life. And therefore, because they are not taught to be alone, when they are alone, they get into a depressive phase, and then they go in for drugs, and then they go in for, suicide, so on and so forth. And other than that, we have compartmentalized ourselves too much. We are just concentrating on being humans, and just limiting ourselves to humans. There are a lot of other creatures in this entire cosmos, and we need to coexist. Learning also means learning to coexist with other sentient beings that you have. So in a traditional Indian Gurukul setup or traditional Indian school, you will see that students learn in the open. There are no classrooms here. You sit under a tree, and I don't know if you've read Indian philosophies, Buddha, he also was enlightened under a tree. There have been a lot of rishis and munis, they have been enlightened under a tree. We have traditional way of studying under a tree. We have deers, and we have rabbits, and we have other beings who are there while we are being taught and while we are studying. And therefore, we learn to coexist and respect other creations also, and not just look at them as food to be eaten or beings to be exploited. I think that compassion and kindness is needed at this point.
Yeah, well said. Yes. Dr. Madhvi, would you like to have your own say?
Yes, definitely. I totally agree with Dr. Vandana's thought and Dr. Daniel's thought about education. Both has reflected on different perspectives of education, the inner world and the outer world. Inner world is about contemplation, outer world is about interactions. And of course, we need both of these things for integral education, and that is what Sri Aurobindo talks about, that we need to have an integral education where we are learning to develop our inner core, that is spirituality, and the external cores also. And of course, before we understand education, we need to understand this fact that nothing can be taught. We cannot teach anybody anything. Okay, whatever one learns, it is because of his own experiences, his own understanding, and his own overall development. So whatever a teacher is giving, it's a kind of instruction, and rest of the things goes to student. If he wants to follow, if she wants to follow, he will follow. Otherwise, he will not follow. That means, right, like you said, experiential learning. You need to have a lot of experiment with students. You need to give them a lot of guidelines. The things that they will like, they will adopt it. The things they don't like, they will just hate it, or they will reject it. Simple. So first of all, about education, I believe is that we need to understand the mind of children. We need to understand their chitta. We need to understand what they think. How do they feel? If we understand that in a proper way, then we can help them to, understand big lessons also, and train their mind in a better direction. So that is what I think, and I would like to hear the points and opinions of all other professors who are here.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Also,
Dr. Prasad?
I
Yes.
would like to add here, most of the people who have actually made a mark, be it Thomas Edison or Albert Einstein, they have not been too involved with rote learning. Thomas Edison was thrown out of the school, and he did not go through the traditional rote learning. Therefore, in Vedant, in Indian philosophy, Vedant, it is said, your Atma is Swayam Prakashit. It is Nitya Shuddha, Nitya Buddha, and Nitya Mukta, which means it is already, wisdom is innate. All the teacher does is it removes the dust which is there on you, and therefore your true shining self, emerges. And that teacher can be your mother also, as in case of Thomas Edison. And therefore, if you look at Thomas Edison's example, what comes to fore is that, like a mother, you need to nurture the student. Like a mother, you need to have a bond with the student. Like a mother, you need to wave stories around boring lessons. Rote learning does not go a long way, is my experience as a teacher.
Sure. Thank you very much for your intervention, Dr. Sharma. And I'd like AISHA to have her first comment on our discussion, if she's listening to us.
Hello.
AISHA. Yes, AISHA, you can jump in, yeah?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. So my comment would be, I think I would like to just say that as we were talking about John Dewey, so Dewey, he says that, the kind of education that we now have, it doesn't actually prepare students for, ethical participation in society. So as you had mentioned that schools, they actually, we can say they manufacture passive, citizens or passive students who are, based on rote learning. They're trying to memorize facts as much as possible. And the schools are trying to, discipline students' bodies and minds. So this is the kind of education system that we have. Now, Dewey, he actually wants to emphasize that students actually need to be, reflective, and they need to be autonomous and ethical beings. so that they, you know, by themselves, they can arrive at social truths. Now, you know, so that he's trying to actually link students with the society. So that's why he's saying that students should have that, you know, capacity for critical and intersubjective, for critical thinking, and they should have that, you know, interest in intersubjective discourse, so that by themselves they can arrive at social truths. Now, schools, you know, the system that we have right now, school system, it focuses on docile, we can say docile compliance, right? So, so my point is that we should, you know, encourage students to pursue individual inquiry. That is required now. It focuses on, you know, manufacturing, you know, beings who are skilled, you know, in a particular, you know, in a particular field. So the education system is kind of workforce oriented, and we are not interested in reproducing, you know, beings who are autonomous thinking beings. So here, I think, again, that internal contemplation, which was just mentioned, that thing is not being developed in the school system, that reflective arc that a student can have. So this education system needs to have an environment where such, you know, you know, these kinds of this kind of thinking can be nurtured.
Of course.
So I'll come to it later on, because DEWEY has spoken about this on this educational environment and
of
stuff
course.
like that. Okay.
Daniel, you would like to jump in, I think.
Sure. Yeah. These comments are really excellent from all the participants, and so one thing I could contribute here would be to follow up on Professor Madhvi's point on Sri Aurobindo. It's very remarkable. I teach nothing. I think he said that, and Professor Madhvi said that. I teach nothing. We teach nothing. What does that mean? It means the impulse comes from the student. The student has to resonate with what is being taught in order to learn. And so the teacher is just a facilitator. And it reminds me of Demetrios, we know this very well, Socrates. Socrates being the midwife of ideas, right? Socrates does not teach you things. He's not trying to indoctrinate you. He draws out like a midwife. You're giving birth to what is innate within you. So maybe it's a reversal of, we tend to see kids as maybe like naturally bad. They're bad. They have to be molded. But maybe there's a different way of thinking about kids as having a natural goodness. Is that the right way to go? One more comment about Dr. Vedantha's point about solitude. I agree. There has to be a space for inner solitude. It's very valuable. And I see a lot of kids, it's constant noise. And also adults too, constant noise. Not being able to have that quiet time, being afraid of that quiet time. And it's leading to serious mental health problems.
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly these kinds of internal threats, as a lot of teachers and professors seem to think about. They're afraid of this diversity of skills and abilities on part of his students. They're afraid of, they're threatened, as if they're threatened by these different learning preferences. They know, very well know that students are multilingual, but nevertheless, they try to push one size fits all lesson to its limits by not allowing actually learners to take actual control of their learning. And there are also these external threats. I mean, pandemics, AI advancements, extreme weather conditions that make it harder, even more difficult for schools and students to make their way forward. My question is how this system is ever going to, not the system, the teachers, how the teachers are ever going to challenge these threats and move to the next level. How could we do this practically?
Can I answer?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So like you said that students are being forced with so many materials, so much of information that they are all packed. Interdisciplinary approach, then different subjects, different languages, all of this they are made to learn from a very beginning. And they learn it very well. And they go to the advanced stages also. But the point is, they are not using it. They are not applying it on their day-to-day practices. That means there is no reflective studies. There is not a kind of reflection on what you have learned. So there is no applicability of the concepts that has been taught. In that case, there is nothing like creativity is coming up. There is no newness in the idea. And whenever they try to do something like going against the flow, then they are being told that you come back to the zone, come back like what others are doing. Like Professor Vanna has given the example of Thomas Edison, right? So like we don't like something newness. We just avoid being very new and creative because people and students are being told that you follow the system. And if in case you try to go against the system, you try to bring something new to the system, then of course your ideas are rejected that time only. So I think students should be allowed to reflect their creative thoughts. They should be allowed to, even if it is wrong, even if it is something which is not accepted. Okay, but at least a chance should be given, opportunity should be given so that they come out with their own ideas, with their own impressions of their mind. Like whatever we have learned so far, they should come something more than that. So that is what I think, that reflective studies, reflection should be very important in the life of students and in the educational understanding.
Like, for
Also,
example,
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, I think with the changing world, it is important that the entire education system should be upgraded. What we are trying to do is we are trying to give to the coming generation what we had. So in our times, people used to become doctors and engineers and management gurus, and a few more professions were there, bankers, so on and so forth. Today, a child who is doing his graduation, he looks forward to being a YouTuber. He looks forward to being something else on the internet. So there's a complete diversification of careers that a child is wanting to pick up now, and therefore I think the education system should also upgrade themselves. We are even now trying to manufacture doctors and engineers and bankers, which is not what the coming generation is looking for. I think we should try to understand what they are wanting to become, what they are looking forward to in life, rather than just, giving them old wine in new bottles. So that is my take. I think the entire education system should buck up, should change, and should look forward to newer horizons.
Are there any practical examples of how to actually instill these methodologies into students' personalities? For example, by telling them to, after a teacher's lecture, by telling them to write a poem, maybe by telling them to be getting involved in a sort of project.
So, my teaching,
a drawing, maybe.
Yes, I just remember I was teaching, one of the lessons, a very boring lesson from Indian philosophy, from Buddhism called Nyaya Bindu. It is a text of Indian philosophy, Buddhism. written by Dharmakirti, very boring text. Now, when you're teaching a text which is extremely boring, I think you have to play around with at least the environment. I remember that day, it was a cloudy day, and I took out 100 rupees from my purse. I gave my kids, I said, okay, all of you go and get some tea. Let us sit down, have tea, and then, discuss this text. And, because I changed the entire environment, it was more of a casual learning. It was like, learning philosophy over a cup of coffee. The entire class was very interesting for them. So I think the teacher needs to do something like that.
Yeah,
where
much more inspiring.
More inspiring, absolutely. And then, there are very difficult concepts. For example, if I have to teach them something related to Buddhism, I pick up pieces from a film and, I show them on the screen, and it becomes very interesting for them. I show them a movie like Lion King when I have to, tell them what dharma means in terms of responsibility, taking up responsibility. So, they understand that, out of the 28 meanings of dharma, one meaning responsibility, they relate to Lion King, and then Lion King will always be there because Simba and Mufasa will always be there in their mind. So we need to be more creative as teachers.
That's true. That's true. Wants to jump in?
Yes, even I have my experiences about teaching. So basically, I am teaching engineering students, and they are like totally practical based students. They like more practical concepts than theoretical concepts. And the saddest part is I'm teaching them theoretical concepts like Indian philosophy, spirituality, all such concepts.
That is hard.
So right now, yes.
That is hard, yeah.
So right now, the problem is they will feel very boring. They don't like to participate. They don't like to engage with others. And they will just sleep sitting at the backside. They will just sleep or watch their phones and do different activities. Now,
the question is, how do we react?
Oh, we cannot react. We have to, of course, bring them back to the zone. So what we need to do is we need to connect them through our concepts. And the best medium is stories. We need to tell them stories so that they can connect with it. And later on, they can just visualize it and they can just form their own concepts and they can come up with the reflective thinking, their creativity. And somehow we have to take them towards our vision, towards our thinking, so that at least if one person show interest, then rest of the groups also showing interest. They also like thinking that there's something very new, something very curious, something very interesting. So we must participate. So it is like this group habit should be developed. If one individual is interested, then automatically the other students start taking participation, start taking interest. So that is what we need to connect with them. We need to show them the real world. Instead of what they are actually seeing, we need to show them that there is something different also. And you should also join with this, and you should also, take part with this concepts. So that's what I feel.
No more Wi-Fi, but Spirit-Fi.
Yeah.
There's another thing. I'll tell you something. I have been given because of the new education policy in India, I've been given a very tough subject to teach, which is Indian consciousness, and in that I'm teaching Mandukya Upanishad and Bhagavad Gita. Now, ideally, these are supposed to be very boring, and this is in Sanskrit, let me tell you. A major part of it is in Sanskrit. So now, but you will be shocked. I had 30 students initially. I have 160 students now. And although, the teacher-student ratio cannot be this, but still, everybody is so enamored by my class, they just want to be there in my class. And why is that so? Because I just know I'm from a theater background. I've done theater for a very long time, 10 years. And I feel that a teacher has to be a very good actor. And therefore, when I teach Bhagavad Gita, I speak like Sri Krishna and Arjun. And, they just love that enacting. And that is why, I realize when I asked my students, why is it that you want to join? They say that, we actually feel when you speak, we feel, Sri Krishna is talking. And now that's a compliment also. But I do believe that a teacher has to be a very good actor also. The way you modulate your voice, the way you talk to them, whether it is compassion, whether it is anger, whether it is haste, it should be there in your voice. And then, the class is very interesting. It goes from 30 students to 160 students.
That's true as well. Acting. You always need acting. Now, is the teacher paradox enough to save education forever and ever? And when I mention this teacher paradox, I am referring to love, teachers' love, both for the subjects themselves as well as the students, but not the kind of emotional love, but some sort of decisional love, where the student will try hard to put learners into the learning path, even if he makes their life a bit difficult, because he cares, he actually cares. Do you think that's enough to overcome all these obstacles?
Can I give my thoughts on this?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so I don't think, because see, I have deeply studied the Bhagavad Gita, and having that thought process, I can say that if a judge has love in his heart, he will not be able to give the right judgment. If a soldier has love in his heart, he'll not be able to shoot his enemy. Likewise, if a teacher has love in her heart, she'll not be able to do justice to the student, and therefore you have to do duty for the sake of duty, which is known as nishkam karma in Bhagavad Gita. Duty for the sake of duty. It has to be dutiful, keeping in mind the wellness of greater good, and nothing else at all. So you have to be detached, and only then you can see the entire situation with a detached mode. Otherwise, if you get involved in the entire picture, you won't be able to see the entire picture.
Even though it's not a kind of emotional, but a self-sacrificial kind of love, put the other person first kind of love, as if it would motivate and inspire. But it's okay. Yeah, I know what you mean. Self-sacrificing yourself is not that a good idea. What do you think?
For me, I believe we need to have a compassionate kind of feeling towards students, because most of the times it happens that students are passing by through their own problems, which they don't share with anyone. And if we try to ask them their problems, we solve their problems. And once the problem is solved, then they're more focused towards the education part. They're more focused towards the theory. Otherwise, if they are holding the problems with them, then what happens is they're not able to concentrate on the material that we are providing to them. So whatever is their problem, if we have an understanding, if we try to fix it out, then later on they will understand the material also, and they will come to us for any kind of problem with them. They will come to us, they will ask that what they are supposed to do. And a teacher-student relationship is very much important when it comes to education, because unless and until you bring such bond, then they can be misguided also. So to bring them back towards the duty, towards the righteousness, towards the lawfulness, we need to guide them towards a right direction. And for that, we should be having an understanding. We should be having a kind of observation towards what they are doing, what their intention is. Are they focusing on the studies or not, or are they focusing on different activities during their class hours? So we need to have such kind of feedback mechanism that I believe is very much important. We need to take feedback from each and every student that are they learning or not. Our education, our pattern of teaching is reaching to them or not. Because if we go on teaching them without them understanding anything, then there is no point in us that we are teaching something, right? So that is what I believe, that we need to have an interaction with them a lot of interactions. We need to have a every day, every time interaction, so that they get connected to our materials, because their mentality is very different. Their mindset is very different. What we are thinking is very different. If we want to come to their zone, then we need to have an interaction. Even if it's like a childish kind of conversation, but we need to start from somewhere. And then only we can take their mind towards an advanced form of understanding. We need to change or we need to transform their mechanism, their mindset. For this, we need to get down to their zone. Once we get down to their zone, to their level, then only we can uplift them towards our level or maybe to a higher level. So that is why I believe that we need to have a lot of interaction with students, a compassion-based understanding and observances.
Now, practically, I don't feel all of this, what we say, is possible. We all know that we are given a certain time period and a certain syllabus, and we have to complete that in a certain, in 6 months or in 3 months. In that period, how can any teacher, 30 students, how can you give time to everybody? That is not possible. I remember I was studying in a traditional school in Ernakulam called, Shankara Nilayam. It is a school where Swamijis teach you. So I remember I went to a Swamiji, telling all my problems that, I have this problem and I have this problem. And my Swamiji he shouted at me and he said, I am not interested in your problems. I'm interested in you. I'm not going to concentrate on your problems. I'm going to concentrate on you. If I also start concentrating on your problems, those problems which are not even as big as a small dot, you'll make them into a huge mountain. And therefore, my concern is you, not your problems. Mm-hmm. And therefore, I think it is important that we have to be very realistic. Honestly, no teacher can give 30 hours in a month to 30 students. It is practically impossible. So let us, be honest to ourselves.
Yes, these are very useful. I mean, both of these actual techniques that you have mentioned are practical ideas that could help us form sort of communities of learners. So towards that idea, yes, Daniel, please jump in.
Yeah, these are very good comments. I was thinking of Professor Madhvi's comments. Starting where the student is. I like to go by this idea that I picked up. The student comes in through their door, but you want them to leave through your door. So kind of like a metaphor. They come in through their door, meaning they have their own interests and preoccupations that I want to understand. And then I help them to realize how philosophy, which I teach, is very important to them. And so they can come out through my door. So they have transformed through interaction with me. And so there has to be some boundaries.
A nice metaphor.
A balance between you're not their friend, you are a teacher, but also I don't agree with being distant. Like some professors, maybe they don't even know the name of the student. They don't even know the name. So I believe that there should be a balance. There needs to be boundaries. You can't be hanging out with your students when they're in your class. You can't be having favorites, obviously, but there also shouldn't be a distance where you're just up there talking. I feel very alone sometimes, just up there talking, and it feels like I'm not connecting with people. So we have to form a community, and Professor Madhvi, I think, is correct that you need to begin with that, with where they are. Maybe it could be, something on YouTube, movies, whatever it could be. It connects with philosophy. So they come out through my door.
So AISHA, back to you.
The thing is, I would like to say that I agree with all that, Madhvi said, and what Dr. Vandana said about how we need to, as teachers, how our conduct needs to be in a classroom and the approach that we need to have towards our students. And I also agree with Professor Daniel that we actually need to strike a balance as a teacher. Otherwise, this teaching, this profession can be actually quite demanding, because so the thing is, because a classroom comprises of a lot of students, and as many the problems can be as many as the number of students. So the thing is, we need to obviously maintain boundaries, but also I agree with Madhvi that we need to have this compassionate approach towards our students, so that we look at them as people. So, and so learning, I think, becomes really organic when we connect with our students. When we connect with them as people. So I think for that connection, we need compassion, or in other words, I can say, if we have a certain amount of empathy towards our students, then I think learning can be, organic. It can be, easier for this to, for the teacher to teach. So that's my point, that I agree with them. Yeah, we need to have that style of teaching that is based on compassion and also feedback. That is a very good learning, I think, process where we have this feedback loop going on, and not just, standardized tests. So learning, in order to understand that our teaching method is working, we need to have that, space of feedback in a classroom. Thank you.
Yes, that's right. We couldn't agree more with you. Dr. Prasad, would you like to add anything more, or shall I move to the next question?
No, you can move to the next question. I'm completely complete.
Yeah, I quite agree with both of you mentioning that kind of the idea of organic life. I mean, education is organic and is based on this principle of agriculture. That is, we shall let human beings flourish. Educational process, it's not a mechanical and industrial process as it is used, as we used to think of, but an organic process. And this idea of linearity, we have to get rid of it. A lot of things are going on. We interact, change, and adapt our habits on a daily basis. So we shall be thinking to alter our old views and ideas and improve them to have a better version of ourselves, actually. Now, there is a question here. Because of the fact that we live in a highly advanced, technologically advanced world, how easy is this? Is it for teachers to blend human touch with digital dexterity? What do you think about that?
As per my understanding, technology has become a most important resources in the teaching industry. We cannot avoid the technology. It has become a medium, a kind of stage which we can, utilize for a betterment. for a transformation. Okay, and the thing is, whatever technology is coming up, the upgradation is coming up, the students must know it, the teachers must know it, and they should also use it. But that doesn't mean that they stop using their own creativity, they stop using their own intellectual power or intellectual strength. We need to find a balance between what and how much do we need technology. If we don't need technology, then we can, of course, go to the traditional method. We can use paper and pen also to let our ideas come up and to have our creative talent to flourish. So like you said about agriculture and linking this concept, the idea of how well you can flourish, how well you can develop and transform, all this thing is very much important. And technology, I cannot see anywhere that we can avoid technology. Every day, whenever we are presenting also, we are doing presentation also in classroom, if we are using a proper visualization kind of stories, if we are saying them the stories, if we are showing them the videos regarding that stories, then they are able to connect it. They're able to see themselves in that zone. So I feel that technology is very much important and we need to upgrade ourselves on the basis of technological developments. We need to bring up new advancements in our teaching so that students can learn better, and also they can, they can make a kind of progressive society. That is what we need, a progress, a progression. We just don't need a constant thing. We need a total progression in the in their arena, and so therefore we need technology. That's what I feel.
But don't you think that we should put some really harsh restrictions on technology to kids and let them use technology, but when they actually need it, where they need it, and according to the reasons why they need it, instead of overemphasizing it?
That is very true. We need to give them directions. We cannot say them that you go on using technology. So we need to find out the balance, like Professor Daniel said, that we need to define the boundaries.
Exactly.
Like how much you need it. If you don't need it, then you don't use it. So that is what a teacher does. He or she needs to guide them. Like what is wrong in technology, we need to give the advantages also. We need to give them the disadvantages also, so that they can make their own choices. They can analyze that which is better for them. Suppose I told them that these are the two example like applications. Either you can use ChatGPT or you can use a different platform where you're like Scholarly, where you can get a more advanced form of information. Okay, so obviously if students understand that ChatGPT is not giving them the clear kind of information or accurate information, then definitely they will be going to Scholarly to find out the data. So there we need to define that where you have to use technology, how you have to use technology, so that they can make their own judgments. We cannot force them. We can just show them that what it is and what it is not. And then later on, they will be making their own judgments and they are going to use it according to their own understanding.
So we shall give them some options to choose from.
Yeah, of course. We should
like
give
from
them
a menu.
Option.
Great,
Yes,
great.
definitely.
Aisha, would you like to jump in?
Hello. So I think when it comes to technology, it's the thing is it actually depends on who is using it. Technology in itself, I can't say that it's wrong or it's right. It is just, I think it's an aid.
There are some countries, I'm sorry to interrupt you, there are some countries, they even banned all sort of technology at schools.
No, I agree. Somewhere I understand why they have banned technology in schools, because it might, when you bring a smartphone into your classroom, it is going to interfere with instruction.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the problem with
it.
technology now is, interference. So the thing is, the problem with technology now is that the more we are using technology, the more we are having problem with attention, with concentration. So I think thing is, in order to, so that students, so that they can be more focused on the material that is at hand, the material, that is being taught in school. For that, you need to use your, I think you need to use your brain power, and a certain different kind of approach is required, when it comes to learning. Learning just cannot take place only via technology, right? We need other approaches. We need, first of all, we need to pay attention to what is being taught. Second of all, we need to engage in discussions. So this, I think, this use of mind and body is essential in a classroom. So this interaction between teacher, student, between students and students, that is required for learning, I think, to happen. Another thing, I think a student, when the student connects with what is being taught, as it was being said that a student, in order to, incite a student's interest in the material which is being taught, they need to engage with the material. So that can only happen, I think, when you are, thinking.
Yeah,
So when you're
100%
thinking,
focused. Yeah.
Yeah, one has to be focused. When you're thinking, when you're trying to relate,
Otherwise, when you have
with
the cell phone,
when you're trying
can't do
to
much.
relate. Yeah. When you're trying to relate your own experience with the content that is being taught in school. So I think, here technology, I think it's good if you take away technology, as a medium of instruction, at least till a certain point is in school. In universities, at higher level, it's okay, because then we know how to manage. They are young adults, they know how to manage their, screen time and all. But kids, I don't think they can. So, yeah.
So it's yes, but up to a degree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So my last question, well said. My last question is the most essential one, and has to do with a perspective through which we have to see education. So there are three major trends nowadays of how teachers and parents and humans in general see education and students, to be more precise. The first one is that is students as products, focusing on the what. Imagine students moving down an assembly line, and the focus is on the results, the quality control through assessments and evaluations and the rest. The second view is students as consumers, focusing on the who. Imagine students selecting what's the best option schools and parents can offer them, and selecting an option from the menu that they're offered. And this menu is linked with market-driven reforms, mostly. But after that, they don't have much say. And the third option, perspective, is to see students as clients, in the sense that students have more responsibility and more ownership and agency of their own learning, and learning is at the center. Which one of these three perspectives do you think is the most useful nowadays? And if there is another one, I would be delighted to hear. Yeah.
In my opinion, the third option is most accurate, because students taking responsibility, they are involving with the matters, involving with the education matter is most important. For example, if we are giving them some kind of projects, some kind of group activities, some kind of projects to bring for us, so they should be having a full responsibility, not just to secure the highest marks, but also to bring the project and the research data in such a way that it is going to bring some form of advancement. some form of development. So that kind of responsibility should be in each of the students. They should take each and every project so seriously that they will engage there most of the times in collecting the data, doing the research, and bringing the findings in the most relevant way. So we need to train students or teach students in such a way that they should be an agent. They should do like activities or any kind of projects in such a way that they get full attainment out of it. Not just the marks attainment, but the attainment in the sense of their development of their mental faculties. So that is what Sri Aurobindo teaches. Development of mental faculty is very much important. Not just the mental faculty, but all these faculties of physical, of senses, of mind, and everything that we that is involving with us. So that is what I think. Students should be an agent. They should take responsibility. They should bring life to all the projects that they are taking, and they should try to make it a perfect one, because perfection is the only key. We should try to become perfect in every day, in every sense. And that is what Sri Aurobindo also teaches, that we need to develop that kind of perfection. And that does not come in a 1 day or 2 day, or in a 1 project or 2 project. We need to develop it day by day, and we need to have a collective understanding for reaching such kind of states that that we think about, or that we focused on. So that's my understanding.
That's great. That's great. Yes, how true. AISHA, what would you say?
Could you repeat the 3
Yeah,
points?
I mean, we society thinks like there are 3 ways of looking at students. First, as products, focusing on what. Secondly, as consumers, focusing on the who is doing the job, letting students select options from the menu they're offered, both from parents and schools. The menus are usually linked with market-driven purposes and reforms. And the third way of looking at students is that of clients. Usually, I intentionally mentioned the third option because this is mostly misunderstood by most of the people, because they don't like the word clients. But the truth is that it's referring to a professional relationship between teachers and students, but not in the sense of the strict professionalism. It has a deeper connotation, that of allowing the students to take ownership of their learning, to be the real agents. Yeah.
I think I agree with the last point where you were saying that we need to look at students as if they are our clients. So, and that way, I think, that would, make us feel, I think, responsible towards our students, and responsible towards, the kind of learning we are imparting to them. And
so would you like to say some concluding remarks or anything regarding our discussion before closing?
I would just add one point of view. Apart from seeing students as an agent, as a client, we should see them as an investment towards a better future. If we make our best to bring something new to them, then they will do their best to bring something new to society. So that's an exchange process. We are giving something to them, and they are transferring it back to the society. So if we start seeing them as a big investment that we are making, then of course we are going to make a big change.
Yeah.
So that is what I believe.
This idea also resonates with me because I believe that education should not only prepare students for life, but education is life itself.
Yes. That's what.
That's
There's
a huge difference.
There's a huge difference between education for living and education for life. Right now, what we are doing, we are preparing students for living, but we are not teaching them about life.
Exactly.
We should prepare them for life also. So that is a kind of balance that we need to develop for a better understanding of this education.
Exactly. So thank you very much for attending today's session, Professor Dr. Prasad and also AISHA. We had the opportunity to discuss what's the situation at schools today, how we could challenge both the inner and external threats of education, if the teacher paradox is enough to save education forever, how easy it is to blend human touch with technology, and also how easy it is to turn a typical classroom into a community of learners, the principles that we have to keep in mind regarding education and the way how we could change metaphors so as to make it easier for our students to prepare not only for their careers, but prepare for their inner change. And also what's the best perspective of education. So thank you very much for attending today's session. It was a very, very productive discussion.
It was an excellent topic and we enjoyed a lot, and we had lots of perspective about this topic. So thank you so much for inviting us, and definitely we are going to join next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was an engaging discussion and topic, and I got to learn a lot, about classroom, management and all, and how to be an engaging and interesting teacher. Thank you to everyone, and thank you, Demetrius, for holding this talk.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you, Demetrius. Yeah, we just love this conversation, and we expect this kind of conversation in the near future. Thank you so much.
Yes, definitely. Good night.
Good
Have
night.
a good night. Have a good night.
Yeah. Yes.